cases, I think on 2nd Avenue South, east of Ocean Breeze, there's pockets where we're going to need to rip down to the rock and rework the base, but other pockets where we can mill off the asphalt and repave it, because we're seeing a crack pattern that we think, you know, based on cores and professional expertise, we can reuse that rock. So it's really a case-by-case basis, and I think that's the way to make sure the $40 million goes to these 34.5 miles of road. I have other streets that we're talking about with Jamie and Felipe, where I'm saying, you know what? You guys had to draw a line in the sand at how far $40 million could get you. But I think we can, you know, save money on this road and then maybe push to add a block to it. Now, that's something we're going to have to work out to make sure we still get to the 34.5. But we're going to try to stretch those dollars to make sure if we got a crew in the field and we can maybe go through this intersection and go another block and fix a street that maybe not be on this list, but we can find a way to trade it with something else that costs less than we had planned for. You know, that's our objective. We want to make sure as much of our team wants to make sure as much of District 4 has a new road that meets the typical section as we can. So, a third of the streets in the city are going to get a very thorough look and repair to the standard that Jamie. Yeah.
That $40 million was not aware because I don't follow that much politics. But that $40 million, is it borrow money or it's a grant that we're adding?
It's bonds, so it's in two separate chunks, I think.
Yes.
So they're going to borrow.
It's given by the state, or is it us taking a loan?
General obligation bond, I think.
It's a bond.
It's a SGA bond.
It's from us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be paying that back in tax dollars over 30 years.
Oh.
Now, I have another question. I know you said you want to make the dollar stretch a little bit more and you might change something on one street so you could do something else on another, which sounds like a pretty good idea, but that one thing you might change your mind on that other street, are you going to end up going back to it a year or 2 or 3 from now and going, I should have done it the first time, now it's going to cost double to tear it back out?
Let me give you an example. There's a street here, 12th Avenue South, near Dixie Highway, that there's a patch in front of the curb inlet that looks really rough. There's some really bad edge cracking and breaking off where it meets 14th, which is unpaved. The sidewalk looks terrible. But there's some like general wear on the road surface, but there's no real cracking. And so it's on the list. We looked at it, thought, okay, I'm not sure how this goes. We took a core, right? Pavement core.
It's really good.
I don't know exactly why. These things don't tell you why they are what they are. They just tell you this is what you found. It was 11.5 inches of asphalt, which is, I've done paving work at Palm Beach International Airport.
It's the same coal, and every year they put the patch.
Exactly, it's a sinkhole.
You can land a plane on 11.5 inches of asphalt. So
because it's empty on the.
We talked with the city. What do we want to do here? Okay, well, you know, there's cases in this where there's a safety problem, there's a traffic problem, because we were out there today. It necks down to one lane where DOT put in this big median, and we saw multiple cases just out there for 15 minutes where cars went the wrong way down a one-way street.
Yeah, that's a horrible street. I live by it.
Yeah, so we're gonna do some. We're talking right now. You know, Dick Haskell, working with us in the city. We're gonna talk to DOT. How can we work out making this a safer street? But I don't think we're going to mobilize.
Let people learn how to drive.
I'd love to figure out a way to do that. I'm a Florida resident all my life. I've seen a lot of bad driving.
So you haven't lived somewhere where they drive better?
Yeah, I haven't. So I don't think we're going to have to spend as much money on that pavement as we had originally.
Well, there's a lot of traffic on that street. So a perfect example is on a street that has a lot of traffic, we probably shouldn't cut too many corners.
Right. Well, we're not talking about cutting corners.
Not cut corners, but maybe change it a little bit and go, well, maybe we could just do this and it'll work for a while.
But what we had planned for in the cost was to mill out 1.5 inches and put back another 1.5 inches of asphalt and, you know, redo maybe curb and gutter. We don't need to do that. Taking 1.5 inches off of 12 inches of asphalt is a waste of money. So we're going to fix where 14th intersects and it's cracking there. We're going to put in some new sidewalk. We're going to fix those sidewalks where it's cracked and the curb ramps that don't exist and make that so you can use it as a pedestrian access. And also when we put that concrete in, folks that do drive the 14th unpaved corridor there, right now it's like probably a 5-inch drop off the edge of that road, all of which is asphalt. Now it's going to have a concrete sidewalk there and clean, and that transition shouldn't, you know, destroy the cars that do drive down that.
It's not very wide. Who are you taking it off of? I know there's Christine is the one that lives in West End.
Oh yeah.
Another, and then so where do you take that from? Because it's so tiny, it looks like an alley.
So on
14th that you're talking about.
So no, okay, 14th is different. Okay, I'm talking about L south of 14th, and then there's an unpaved thing. 14th is very, very skinny, and I think that is probably going to stay. Again, that I think is not an expensive repair. It's pretty easy to just do a quick mill and overlay.
You can't really get 2 cars in there.
We'll be talking to the city about if they want to widen it or not. But
That's a good thing. That means there's not a lot of traffic down that road.
I know. But at the same time, you don't want to have to head on at nighttime and have someone coming your way.
yeah.
Or you want a fire truck to get through it.
Well, it's definitely have to be wide enough for fire access. There's 11th Avenue west of, east of, between Federal and Palm Way, which I would have thought between Federal and Palm Way, all the streets would be pretty wide. It gets down to 13 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, so we're looking at options. But, you know, when you widen it, then you're digging into people's driveways, landscaping, which we're discussing that we can do.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, it's already there's already very little visibility there. So if you take any part of the road and widen it, I don't understand. I mean, you're already up on people's vegetation. So unless you're taking part of the yard away, I drive in and out of that
There's
stretch
so
every
many
single
feet,
day.
it's called easement off the main road.
Oh, it doesn't
There's so many
exist.
feet on each street.
Yeah, from the center of the road out, it should be like 20 feet each way.
People have been donating vegetation to the city for a long time.
Yes.
So we walked it today, and we talked about ideas like removing the hedge, moving it back, widening the street. How far do we want to widen it? There's all kinds of different pieces to the puzzle. You know, you've got a light pole there that's got a lot of different phone and cable utilities on it. Do we want to relocate that? And every time you make a decision to try to say, you know what, let's just make 11th from Palm Way to Lakeside the perfect typical section like we really want, you maybe spent another $50,000 on that segment that really would have been better spent on a street that we all know is total garbage and needs a major repair. So we're trying to balance that out. Whatever happens, at the end of the day, it's not going to be 13 feet wide anymore. It's going to be wider. We're going to have, you know, our side triangles so that it's safer at the intersection. There's going to be a sidewalk in some form or fashion to get you from Palm Way to Federal. But we're working out the details on how to do that. What's the smartest way to build that without spending, you know, a big amount of our budget on that street? So we're working through some of those details. I think the 14th, we've been talking about maybe waiting. We're going to do this big drainage project. We'll have, when we do the drainage project, we'll be tearing up big chunks of this area, and maybe we'll just pave that. You know, with all the crews out, they could do that really easily. So we're looking at.
I saw a patch on 10th Street. I saw a patch being done 2 years ago on 10th Street. They were just keeping patching, and suddenly one day there was a subcontractor, not the city of Lake Worth. There was no sign on the truck. They did that 15 by 15 patch with rods of 12 feet. There's 15 rods they putting in the ground.
Okay.
And I said, is this a real sinking hole?
Oh.
And I went to the contractor and I asked them and said, don't know, you know what for the city. Just doing it. Just do what I told.
Yeah.
I don't say the address, but It's on N Street.
So we don't have any sinkholes that have been reported.
But there is a patch who has rods.
Right.
There's one right across from my house.
15.
Yeah, I'd love to.
15 rods.
Where is
That's a
that?
lot of
Actually, not across from my house, but on the corner of 11th Avenue South and M. And then I think there's another one on N Street.
But we're very
Okay.
close.
And
Yeah.
you
For,
should
for
think
some
about-
reason,
It always
between
sinks
N and M
down.
on 11th Avenue South, my street's like really perfect.
Yeah, you guys have a good street.
Until they came and put that water line in, and now they patched it, my driveway floods and all that stuff, but that's beside the point.
So 11th Avenue South at M, we're going to repair that whole.
That whole corner is horrible, and it's because the sewer line is broken below.
Okay. Well, we'll make a note of that.
Because they're empty hole.
Because every time they patch it, it sinks again, and they patch it, and it sinks again. And, I mean, it don't even last. If I say 6 months, I'm probably exaggerating. And of course, people fly up and down that road all the time too. That's one of them roads that need a stop sign.
Not even a stop
You know, the same
sign.
situations on 15 South.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We were out at 11th and M, and I made notes that there was a lot of problems in that
There's a
intersection.
lot of problems in that corner.
And so, even though, like in cases of, you have a line that comes to a stop at an intersection, we're going, I think it's 25 feet past the intersection on all sides that
Yeah,
need
so
it.
you could tie in.
So that we can tie in, and also just, we got all the crews out there, let's just fix the whole thing while we're there, and then when, the city...
But like that South End where you said you kind of looked at it, you're going to do that intersection, that's kind of a perfect example of what I said earlier. There's a reason it keeps sinking. Maybe it's because they didn't compact it, maybe they did. There's a reason for it, and
Right.
how much of that are you going to... Yeah, you could scope it and look at it, but there's still a reason. You're going to have to dig everything back up and start all over again and figure out, what that reason is. And that's what I was getting at earlier. Yeah, it's fine and great and it'll last a little while, but there's still a reason for it. And what's that reason?
No, I think you're
Cameras
totally
and TVs, maybe it's a broken
Yeah.
storm drain. There's a storm drain right there. There's a sewer line there. There's a lot of things there.
No,
So that's why I like when residents like you come out to meetings like this, because this is information we wouldn't get, because some residents they see stuff happening, but they never really email or call. They just kind of, they'll
I know,
get it at some point.
most-
now that we know it's a reoccurring issue that keeps happening over and over, we have notes on that. So
Well,
we
I know
can
the
actually
person that
help
lives on that
us.
corner calls all the time to the city and bitches about them potholes, and so does the handicapped guy that lives 2 houses down.
Well, I think, like Jamie's saying, because he gets a lot of those phone calls.
Yeah,
Hearing somebody complain about a pothole is something he hears every day.
Yeah.
Hearing somebody say, this is caused around a structure, and I know there's something going on,
Yeah.
is another piece of information that we're writing down right now, and we'll look into. I mean, I think we can get that location, the line TV. I was talking to Felipe about a similar case on Lakeside that I noticed, and he was saying the same thing. It just always depresses around that structure. There's got to be a leak
Yeah.
where the joint is. Where
It's
the
like I
pipes
said,
come
if
in.
you look at the manhole cover, the depression goes lateral,
Yeah.
north and south and east and west.
Yeah.
So you know
Yeah.
that it's a broken line somewhere you would think close to it that's
Right.
causing an erosion underneath.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
That's why there's Brian Shields, the water sewer director. He's about to walk in right now. It's kind
Oh.
of funny we were talking about.
I can pin it.
Well, let me pin him down
He's
for
like,
a
is the
minute.
meeting still going on? I'm like, come on, join the party.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I know. Let me pin him down for a minute too.
We will.
All streets will be at proper elevations, I assume,
So,
heights.
Right.
And we won't have what I've seen in other cities like West Palmer, or for whatever bizarre reason, streets and sidewalks are put at a higher elevation than they were before, and then water drains into people's yards.
okay, yeah. No,
I'll change the level of
That's because someone sloped the sidewalk the wrong way.
so we really harmonizing what we do with the front of the private property is, I think, the trickiest part of what we're doing. In some cases, that's one reason I'm trying not to break sidewalk that's in good shape, because we want to give the contractor that front of sidewalk edge. Nothing is allowed to go higher than this. We're going to do all of our work 6-inch reveal on the curb, and then do our work on the asphalt below that, gutter everything. Now, when we rip everything out, including the sidewalk, we're going to have to make sure they're following our grades from the plans that say, you know, we're matching into where the private resident has the, whatever that elevation is, and we're giving direction on what's the center of the road, center line grade, what's our gutter line, what's our back of sidewalk, and so we give them section and elevations of what they need to do. So yeah, we definitely don't want to construct the road in a way that the private resident, and there are, as you may have seen, there are houses in Lake Worth that the front yard is just concrete pavement, so we have to make sure that we tie into that and don't cause a problem.
Mine is one of those, and I'm 1 foot higher than the sidewalk.
Okay. Yep.
When we take a look at what we have now, as far as street parking, sidewalks, are we going to receive replacements for street parking, sidewalks?
So we are, like on K, there is sidewalks, curb, street parking on both sides, a bike lane, and then a travel lane in the middle. So we're going to make sure that when we're done, there's street parking on both sides, a travel lane, and a bike lane. We were talking today about playing with some of the widths. I'm not sure why, but the bike lane is like 6 feet wide there, and the street parking is 6 feet wide, and then the travel lane, I think, is at 8 or 10. Anyway, we want to make sure that, I think we can maybe skinny that bike lane up to 5 feet and still have a viable standard, state standard bike lane, and then buy ourselves a little room, whether it's in street parking or maybe we pull the sidewalk in a little bit and have an easier time harmonizing with the front of people's yards. That's some stuff we're playing with right now. In every case that we've talked about ideas, hey, do you want to try to have a swale in this location? You know, folks, I remember Julie, who works with Brian, Assistant Utilities Director, saying, hey, if there's street parking there now, we want to make sure there's street parking there when we're done. There are locations where...
you know why I'm asking this? Because somebody else presented one with missing parking on Second Avenue
I didn't know
South.
that. Okay.
And...
okay. I didn't know that. I wasn't at that meeting.
Options.
Yeah.
It was one of the options.
It was
a street that should have probably never been thought of. But,
Okay. There's, I think there's some locations that we were looking, actually on 11th today, that we were talking about, well, maybe we could do street parking here where it's currently just grass. We're really not trying to take away any parking, street parking. The only case where that might happen, when we talk about traffic calming, which we haven't really gotten into, if we do any of these bump outs, that say at an intersection or something, we're not going to do a roundabout in any of these.
I think on 6th Avenue with these bumps out,
Yeah.
the palm trees, there was so many accidents.
those are
I've heard
The
that.
first day that you put that tree, I saw an accident there.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I think they're not that far too much into.
Yep.
Okay.
And not only that, now you're getting people that panic, that really don't know how to drive, they panic, so what they do is they stop on the brakes, and then they won't go anywhere
Or they
because
cross
they're
over the
confused
center
until
line.
everybody else passes, and then they'll go. I mean, it's
Sir,
just ridiculous.
I'll tell you, I have 2 cars, a small car and I have a truck. Okay? And when I pass with my Bronco, just the mirror, if I have another van or anything, a pickup truck, we can barely make it. It's mirror to mirror. It's, you know, I think it was not.
So then it's working perfectly. The bottleneck is making people slow down. It's working absolutely perfectly.
It's kind of funny because we've got a lot of calls
Good
from
job.
services about that, and they're probably 75% of the people are like in favor of what we did, and 25 are like, well, I have to go so slow, and I go,
Exactly.
well,
It's
not
not
enough
enough.
It's a great idea. It was just about, you know, the curb space,
Yeah.
had it been shoved back against the curb and then create the little hole through it so you could run the sewage through it.
we just made sure that we kept the
So the width
It's
where
like you
that
should-
bumper is 12 feet, right? From the yellow line to the edge, that's your road length.
correct.
Right? That's 12 feet.
The lane.
So that's legal.
Yeah, we did everything, you know, the engineer record sign off on everything's legal that we did there.
From where to where is 12?
And
You're talking about the front
The
of
yellow line on 6th Avenue, when you got those yellow bumpers out there, okay.
You're talking about
Double
from
yellow
the
line
face
is-
of the.
Center of that double yellow line, from there to the bumper is supposed to be 12 feet.
No way is it 12.
Yeah, that's
It doesn't
no
have
way.
to be 12 feet. It could be less than 12 feet.
That's standard.
No, legally it can't be less than 12 feet. It has to be.
So it needs to have fire truck access.
It needs to be signed off on by Palm Beach County. There's a whole process.
With the exception of some of these little side roads, like on Palm, like between 11th Avenue and Palm Way, that are, you know, kind of, some are a little bit smaller, right on the brink, but it's 12 feet.
Brian, the question more is, other neighborhoods have this. Bryant Park has this issue very minorly. We have a few homes that, for whatever reason, through all these decades, have gotten away with never putting a sidewalk in.
Yeah.
If you're doing major work on the street where the majority, both sides, have sidewalks, and you got this goofball that doesn't have one, is that one going to get a sidewalk?
That's a good question. Right now, we show on the plans, I know there's 3 or 4 lots on M that are exactly like that, where there's a sidewalk on both sides, and it's just this gap. And so our plans currently say to install sidewalk in that location, so that the sidewalk is continuous. Now, what we've talked about, outreach and such, is to communicate with that homeowner. You know, we really just started the whole thing March 24th or something, 27th. So we've been at this a little while, but not long enough that we identified the concern and then went out and started knocking on doors and talking to people. But I think that's something that is in the making, where we're going to have to contact the people where, in one of the cases I'm thinking of, we're going to have to relocate their mailbox, for instance. So, but I mean, if you look at it, you've got a curb, you've got a retaining wall, and you've got a gap, and then at the end of that, 50-foot lot, the sidewalk starts again. So it's just like, let's work with this homeowner and put the sidewalk in.
I know somebody who's ever doing,
yeah, that's okay.
District 3 said that they're going to have to move irrigation lines for somebody.
Okay.
As an example. But,
right.
Maybe that homeowner was even at that meeting and said, "Oh, okay, as long as you do that."
Yeah. Right.
But I'm sure it'll be.
Yeah, our specifications are going to have information in there for the contractor to remove and relocate irrigation if that's something that comes up. But sidewalk, as currently shown in locations we're saying we'll put it. There are places where, like I said, just the characteristic of that street makes it difficult. There's no sidewalk anywhere. We're going to make sure there's going to be sidewalk at least on one side, or at least continuous, so that there'll be a way to get from one side, one end of the block to the other. But it might not be that we're always doing a typical section sidewalk on both sides uniform.
And I don't know how bad South Grade is, but the area around North Grade is actually awful.
Yeah.
You see a lot of children being walked in the streets by their parents.
Yeah.
So just hoping that maybe area around South Grade.
Yeah.
You gotta, as a father.
I walk my daughter into North Grade all the time.
As a father.
Yeah.
No one brings their child to school with plenty enough time to lollygag into school.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
These children and adults walking around on the streets are sometimes trying to dodge cars driving faster than normal to drop off their kids.
Yeah,
so
no, I agree.
We'll put a bottleneck there.
And that was a good point to bring up there, because there are going to be areas, I know especially up in District 3, where we are going to have to put sidewalk in on property that currently there is none. But especially in District 4, when you kind of look at a lot of the homes there, the city right-of-way actually goes 5 feet into a lot of people's yard. They just don't realize it.
Or
but if you actually look at
South Palm Way, it actually goes way more than 5 feet.
Yeah, but if you kind of look at, if they looked at their survey, they'd see that their actual property line isn't all the way out to the street. So technically it's city right-of-way, and a lot of people planted landscaping, all kinds of stuff. There's, like Brent mentioned, in situations like that, which you have to contact the resident, give them plenty of time. Say, is there a certain place you want to move this? Can we just relocate it back a little bit? But it's just going to be kind of a one-on-one thing working with those particular residents. But ADA is a big thing, which we haven't talked about. And just that continuity and being able for someone to get from point A to point B without having to go into the street.
And I think that's in the future, that's going to be even more and more important as our residents get older and car driving starts decreasing, and people are going to need to get around. I was mentioning one issue with children, because that's my issue at the moment, is being able to let my little girl take a scooter or bicycle or whatever safely off of traffic. But I mean, ADA is
Absolutely.
And one of the things that is unique to Lake Worth with respect to ADA and sidewalks is the alleys. It seems like you might have a good sidewalk on Second from Ocean Breeze to Palmway. The sidewalk I think is mostly in good condition. There's some spots where it's broken up. But then mid-block, you've got the alley, and the sidewalk just ends.
Yeah,
and
thanks
then
for
there's just
reminding me.
dirt. And then the sidewalk picks up
My
again.
daughter has figured out how to ride her bike through that now. She's strong
Okay.
enough,
Yeah.
but that was dangerous before.
Yeah.
And of course, if you think of somebody in a wheelchair,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
they'll get stuck.
No, there's
Down on Lakeside
no...
Avenue,
There's
I
no
see
shortage
children
of
all the
electric
time in the
vehicles.
streets because there literally is no sidewalks from like, I think it's like 14th all the way up to about, I think it's what, 8th Street?
Mhm.
There's nothing.
Right.
So kids are constant, I mean, we're not talking about one, we're talking about 3 or 4 children
Mhm.
walking and riding bikes in the street by themselves, and it's scary.
And there's a huge,
I-
there's a huge liability on the city's part for not being able to provide that, if that were ever, especially ADA,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of areas in the city where, for some reason or another, there's no actual ADA ramp. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
sidewalk just kind of comes to an end in an intersection, and I guess you're just supposed to drop off.
Yes.
But there's no ramp there, and then in some situations.
As you know, if they did get up there, there might be a power pole in the way.
Well, yeah,
But I know
that's just it.
utilities
There's some
working.
situations
We have-
where
we have
they literally
cases,
put the telephone poles.
So
the
our
electric
plans
poles.
call out to relocate the power pole, and we'll be
Oh,
working
okay.
with the utilities department.
Okay.
In the case, I think you have to have at least 24 inches wide for, it's I think 30 inches long. There's a rule, or 30 inches wide for no
You
more
do
than
like a
24
little
inches.
bump into the
So you
path.
can get skinny, but it can't be for more than 2 feet or something
Mhm.
like that. So as long as the pole is in a location that it gets skinny and then gets wide again, we can work with it. But in a lot of the cases, it's right there in the middle,
Mhm.
and so we're calling for relocation.
And I know utilities
Right,
mentioned
has a
they're
lot of
going to
those.
do that on their own. I mean, that's just one of their maintenance
Mhm.
items.
Mhm.
Correct. We're doing it right now at 2nd, 3rd, North and J, right there by the Publix. Both of those intersections had, when Publix went in for some reason or another, I don't know why they weren't required to, at those intersections, redo all of the sidewalk and put in brand new ADA ramps, but they weren't.
Or
So
even
they
put a
in one.
sidewalk on one side.
So we're redoing 3 at the corner right there at 2nd, then we're also redoing 2 on 3rd, and the one on the southwest or southeast corner of 3rd had the power pole right in the center, and there's no ADA ramp. So electric's already gone out there and relocated those poles, and next week I believe we'll be putting in the new ramps. But that's citywide for some reason.
So we'll have to look at ramps at the intersection corners and also mid-block at the alleys. And then bridging the gap, if it's unpaved, we'll either pave some asphalt in or we'll make it so it's an extended concrete sidewalk. We're working through those details. I'm going to get to you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any work scheduled to be done on Palmway. Someone mentioned Palmway. Because it,
I don't think so. I think there's crossing Palmway.
right, yeah, there's stuff
Coming
going
up to-
crosswise, but it's probably doesn't fall in the scope of this project, but there are, I don't know if it's 50-50 with sidewalks and
Yeah.
no sidewalks. Does
Yeah.
that just
It's
stay as
very-
is
yeah,
until it's...
Lakeside, both of them are
Yeah,
really bad.
Palmway, I've noticed the same. Palmway and Lakeside. It's funny because I think of South Palmway as a really great corridor. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful corridor, and it's one that you think of people out walking their dogs, but they're always walking their dogs in the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or down that Center Street.
What
So, I
are
mean, when you go through, is that something that's evaluated and
so
added
on
to
11th
the
Avenue
code?
South, where we intersect Palmway, we're going to have a ramp at each corner,
Right.
where there isn't one on the south side, or there is one on the north side, but it needs work. And then we'll have it extended, but then cut off. So inside the limits of our project, we'll set everything up for sidewalk to be tied in. But we're not going to
So on.
continue on down.
Right.
The idea for the city, and I think what you'll see a lot of times if you look at South Palmway, there'll be a sidewalk in front of a house that's new
Yeah.
or recently remodeled.
Right.
And so the city has required them as part of their permit process to put a sidewalk in. So as some of the houses turn over, maybe some of that connection happens, but I wouldn't think it's going to be anytime in the near future.
There's a threshold for a certain amount of dollar work that you
Right.
put into your house. If you put in new windows, you're not required to put the sidewalk in, but if you put in a sufficient size addition or you build a new house, that kicks in the requirement for putting a sidewalk in. And it hasn't worked fast enough for
Right.
the city.
Back to the school. between N like Nancy and M like Mary, 7th Avenue, there is this little alley. It's blocked. Only pedestrian can go. It's like a little cross.
Okay.
It's garbage corner. And
Okay.
a lot of kids goes there to go to school because they cut through with bicycles and things like that. That would be so nice to have it paved or a sidewalk, something with a curve or something.
On
It-
7th, between N and M.
I live corner A
N and
curve.
M. Okay.
Yes, this is a lot of kids who use this to go to school, and it's pathetic. I feel sorry for the kids.
Well, I know, like the 5th Avenue South project is a greenway project specifically for Lake Worth High School to try to
at
promote.
that level, N Street is very nice.
Mhm.
It's only that little section.
Right.
It'll be like boom, and it'll change the whole area.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not necessarily part of the neighborhood road program bond, but I do think it's a project
Kids.
that could be done.
It's used by kids and
Yeah,
safety.
no, I totally agree.
bicycle,
And I think the
green,
city is smart in a lot of the cases where you don't have a paved corridor now. In some cases, it still looks nice, or it can be cleaned up and maintained as a greenway or as a passageway for pedestrians. And that's a perfect opportunity, I think.
You have a school right
Schools close by. Yeah, I mean, we're not trying necessarily to open up new pathways for traffic, especially there. But a pedestrian, I think, is a good fit for it. So we have that written down now, and we'll.
Are there any green? I know they did a lot of the greenway projects on the west side of the tracks. Are they doing any of them on the east side?
I don't know the answer to that.
The next one we had planned.
They all
for
seem to be
sometime
on
here.
this side of the tracks.
Yeah, we were looking at
There's no
8th
place to
Avenue
be.
North from I think A to D. But we've now, as of last year, they've kind of opened up our actual area that we can do CDBG projects through the county community development block grant.
Not that I necessarily want people cutting down these alleyways and the druggies and all that.
Well, I don't think
So on and
alleys.
so
I don't think
forth,
alleys
but-
would ever be. I don't know, but I don't think the alleys were on the table for greenways. It's the unpaved corridors.
The unpaved right, the east-west
Yeah.
streets. But before we were kind of restricted to, basically Lake down to our border at Lantana, and then basically Dixie west. Now we've kind of been able to open up and look at other areas as well. It just has to be approved with the county. So that's why originally we were kind of concentrating in that area.
I think this area here had the most unpaved right-of-ways, and that was one of the reasons why so many of them were going in, because it was really
Well, that was a grant too, wasn't it?
so many. And so they did have a grant from the county to do some of the work, and then they also funded some of it with general revenue funds.
And like 6th Avenue or 7th Avenue South, that ended up being one that was a roadway.
Yeah, it's a one-way.
Then 10th was a roadway, but we also had like 11th, we're up to 5th right now. So we kind of had a good mix of greenways and roadways in there.
Because
So
there
kinda
was some,
systematically.
if you did them all as greenways, then if a police officer is on A and he needs to get to C, it's a call. There was some cases you had to drive like 5 blocks south and come back around. So you need some of those to be roads to give you connectivity for, emergency response. But in other cases, we didn't necessarily, the city I don't think necessarily wanted to pave all of them. Not to mention, one of the things you have to think about, you pave that street, 15 years from now, you have to repave that street. Let's be smart about maintaining the streets we have, not creating new streets if we don't need them.
Yeah. Brandon, so you got some things on there.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everybody, shade trees are incredibly important to people who like to walk around the city. So palm trees don't do much.
Okay.
Except be pretty.
Yeah. Okay. So we have
They don't
a
snap during hurricane.
graphic here that I believe has been used at all the other meetings for the other districts. And the idea with this graphic is we have these little stickers, and everybody can kind of put a sticker on the features that they think are most important. So if you hate bump outs, you don't put a sticker there. If you hate palm trees, you don't. If you like canopy trees, you do. And kind of work your way around. So again, we're trying to be as consistent with all the other, there's 3 other firms that are working in the other districts of the city. So everybody at these meetings brings this board and kind of takes the temperature of people But I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you for addressing me. That actually answers my question.
Oh.
So thank you.
Wow.
Well, I asked earlier about speed reducers, and you said that was one of the purposes
Yes.
of the meeting.
Yeah.
At what point can we talk
So
about
yeah, this is a good transition. So speed humps, I think there's one on N somewhere. There's definitely one in District 4 now.
Yeah.
A speed hump. I know there's.
A couple of them.
Between 5th and 6th on end.
There you go, between 5th and 6th. There's a few different places where there's speed humps now in the city. I know a lot of people mention K. Maybe we want to look at a speed hump on
Yeah,
K.
from 6th Avenue South heading north on K Street, somebody had told me, somebody in the neighborhood said that we were talking about every 1,000 feet.
Okay.
And that would actually occur probably about 4th Avenue South,
Okay.
which gives them a
Good run-up.
straight
Yeah.
shot. I would like to see one at least midway through each block,
Mid-block.
or
Okay.
each 2-block area. 'cause
Can we
it's
get
actually
it
a
one,
2-block area.
one on Ocean Breeze at least?
It being a dead end of only 5 blocks.
Yeah, if there was
doesn't
one
seem
mid-
to help.
Where,
Yes, those are,
you know,
those
one
are
thing you could
2-block
also try-
segments to stay on K Street before we move on.
When you
if you don't mind.
okay, sorry. So as I mentioned before, this is year 1, but we are going to continue the K Street repairs, but there's going to be some underground utility work here as well. So you know, speed humps could be added between 3rd and 2nd.
Where is that blue line starting?
So it's
down
from
on the
3rd to
bottom?
6th
Okay.
right now.
So that area is in 2-block segments. There's, Greenway or whatever you call
Okay,
it.
right,
where
right.
5th would be.
Right.
And then 4th is an actual paved
Right.
road. If there was a speed bump midway between 6th and 4th, and then 4th and 2nd,
Okay.
I think it would work really well when slowing down traffic.
We've actually talked to a lot of residents on K that have been requesting the speed humps. So we definitely know, and we'll kind of look into that and as far as what the standards are for speed humps. It's definitely been a really big thing that multiple residents down K have talked to us
So
about.
you get the hump, and then there's a striping pattern coming up to it to kind of let folks know that it's there. And so we'll be following. That'd be great.
You know, one thing they also did was, most recently, was all west of Dixie in the Royal Poinciana neighborhood, across 3rd Avenue South, from A all the way across. They put in stop signs all the way. So that stops them at least halfway up.
Right.
In
that's
this
gotta be a
case,
lot-
that wouldn't
well,
work because it's a 2-block segment.
No, but I'm saying, for some areas, it would be less expensive, at least, and it's a much quicker fix, at least for the time being. Then you always decide on speed humps or bumps and what you want.
No,
Put in some stop signs.
Yeah.
That has to stop traffic.
The
Period.
next complaint's going to be people are going through stop signs.
Yeah, they do.
But wait, but you also
They do
have
that in our
some.
They do it all the time.
But you have some stop signs. For instance, you go as like where West Blackman lives up in that block on because of the W College
Wellesley?
Park. Is it Wellesley? Yeah.
Oh, Wellesley.
They've got one. They're solar powered panels with lights. You've seen those, right?
Yeah.
They have the lights around them.
Or no,
I mean,
that's Pennsylvania and Columbia.
yeah, but my point is that they're between that, just like Royal Poinciana has all those reflective strips that go up the poles at the stop signs. So there's ways for people to see a lot of those without being so drastic for a speed hump, speed bump, punch out, whatever you want to do with them, a lot less expensive. That will slow down a lot of the areas where you may not have to do such drastic work and use those funds for other things.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all
I
I'm
hear you.
suggesting.
I don't think the speed hump is going to be a funding concern. We want to make sure it's something that's agreeable to the residents, because sometimes you put one in a place that people don't want it. We've heard a lot of feedback in favor of speed humps on K. I think as of right now we'll be putting speed humps on K. But then there's other things that we can look at and talk about. And so hold on, let's
specifically, I'd like to know: is there a less intrusive way to slow traffic down? Because if you talk to anybody who has a speed bump in front of their house, they are not happy.
Right.
Cars
It
bottom
is
out on
a
them.
quality of life issue about this constant noise. 6th Avenue in particular is just a nightmare. for
K
a lot
Street
of
is
people.
constant noise day and night. because
Well,
it's
you
the
got
main
speed bumps
thoroughfare.
every 6 inches on K Street.
There's speed drops. There's speed holes.
Middle of downtown.
There's not people speeding on K Street right now.
I live in
Well, you
Place.
can do that all you want.
I live there.
Okay. I'm not buying it. And he did the study. I live on J Street. They're not speeding on J
What
Street.
I will
either.
say is on K Street, 27 miles an hour with cars parked on both sides
Feels
of the
like
bike
50.
is fast. And that is the average speed on K. Yeah, I don't know. I just know we got a lot of feedback.
Bike on K Street.
Put the speed bump in front of my house,
Okay.
505.
It does. 505K. One speed bump coming up.
And it's not like the traditional speed bumps that you guys are kind of thinking about, you know, those big,
The
tall,
hump.
yellow ones. It's more of like a speed hump. So the idea is it's still going to be high enough to reduce the speed of the traffic, but we're not talking about such a slow speed bump that you would see in like a parking lot or something like that, where it's a lot,
It'd be like
you know,
something by
higher.
South Street, like on South 8th Street, one of those plastic.
Right, there you go.
Well, it would be plastic though, but yeah, there's like an actual platform.
Yeah, a platform you bolt
Yeah,
down
so-
or whatever. It's not going to be a mound of.
But they were
Yeah,
tearing those
yeah.
up on A Street.
I guess my question was,
I sometimes I'm up at 3 in the morning, and I can hear the drag racing, the street racing, and I already know that they don't come down my street on the lakeside because we have 2 or 3 of them there, but they do go down. I've heard them down Palm Way, and I've heard them down Federal. So they
They go down M too. They'll take off by the school and they'll fly until they get down to that little shopping plaza.
Yeah. So
They'll keep me up all night. I'll hear them flying and bopping.
That's where the bulb outs kind of those intersections come into. If you could have a good
Pretty much.
combination of humps and bulb outs, like at corners and stuff like that, stuff that kind of narrow the street a little bit.
Visually,
That way, yeah, as you mentioned, you really don't want a street with just hump.
Visually, the bump outs look better. You can put a little tree there or something like that, or whatever the case. They look a lot better than.
And the advantage of a bulb out also is that you can areas for the shade areas that we lost in the city. That's also giving you areas that plant trees that will give you more of that
Most
shade.
people have a driveway in the back of their yard.
About to ask is at certain key intersections that the intersections, there's a bit of a raised platform with the bulb outs for the pedestrians at the corner. You see a restriction on the road coming because people speed up when there's less cars parked, and that's part of our problem on Ocean Breeze is, you know, because most of those blocks don't have a lot of cars parked on it. But if we go every 2 or 3 blocks or something, do the bulb outs at the corners, not mid-block, but at the corners, and then raise up. And this is similar to what Olive Avenue has on some of the intersections.
Yes.
Maybe, you know, they're not going to be as big as those, but and then we can introduce shade tree signage and stuff as well.
The bulb out at the intersections was something that we were actually just talking to the city about for some of their roads, like doing them specifically at the intersections to kind of help with that.
Because they're not like up, down. You eliminate some of the noise, and they're already at a corner, not in the mid-block in front of 2 people's houses.
Should we pass out stickers and everybody can put their votes on?
They're right up there. And
How many stickers does everybody get?
4 last time. Was it 3 or 4? 3.
Oh yeah, you get 3. So I'm gonna let you police yourselves, I guess.
I'm gonna take the whole shoe. I'll take 3.
All right. So should I guess what was? How many do we hand out, Jennifer? So take 3. Jennifer, how many is it?
3. They get 3 apiece, and the idea is to use those 3 to put them on your highest priority
biggest
concern.
priorities.
The green are the priority?
No, good way or bad way?
Whichever ones get the most stickers.
Which one you want or which one you don't want? No, seriously.
What your priority is.
What you want.
What's the most?
I can't play favorites. Thanks for coming.
Give him a challenge.
So, Brian.
So this is just going to be kind of like color coding, and it is the idea that it's like visually different.
The 2 streets where we
You guys are like Christmas Jason. So Jason had a concern.
Because I don't want to keep you away from this meeting. So he's on the video.
constantly get all that information. The storm drain and the sewer line, what I was worried about was and also
keep in mind, we're only focusing on the ones that are in use right now.
Sewer lines are maybe broken storm drains.
Email addresses. I'm having a hard time finding it. I realize I've got like half of everybody's phone number, half of everybody. Because it just texts so much. I don't even have emails. I don't get emails.
Whatever it is you have, I'll just start the training.
I'll figure it out.
Also down this road, we'll replace the driveway.
Yeah, there used to be a list.
Okay, so it's like you have the curve, regular sidewalks that are like 6 feet of curve, and then it drops to the ground.
You're at the campus, you're down the front door. I'm down the side.
Oh, that's probably year 3. But the intention is to have a drop curve.
That explains why Carl has some.
They just assumed that you would show up.
Here's my card.
Everyone, there is a hotline at the bottom of your agenda. Be sure to notice that, and also the website. Which one are you?
6 months time or so. But I know. It's a good example.
Put all the extra. Thank you very much.
That's the one that I use to share
because there's but I know if you're looking at what Katie's consideration is, we're going to get out there.
Is that like WD-40 or something that you get from when you're doing a crank on the besides, there is a
self-proclaimed. In this community, I feel under protection. It's very, I mean, can you
So what I really love, I mean, next time you see
Oh, wow.
And you really didn't have car across from here. And I would love to be part of this property. My problem is, so we're just trying to get that. Do this and that. Just that. That's my background. But I use that in most of our uses. They staff and I would do well. Well, and the first thing is, you know, the logistics of getting